And exception C21, approval of previous closed session minutes. With that, I would like a roll call, please.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah? Yes. Ms. Conley-Wappian? Here. Ms. Lozamo?
Present.
Ms. Gonzalez? Present. Mr. Ewing?
Here. Thank you. We do have all board members present. I would also like them to go back into open session. Do I have a motion to resume open session?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Eck, second by Ms. Hannah. All in favor, signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we are now in open session. I'm excited to be back at Lincoln Center. This is the first time that we've been back in this boardroom. We had one meeting here with our IAFB rep, but this has been the first time that we've been back since schools closed over a year ago. It is a sign that we are getting back to some sense of normalcy, and as the superintendent has stated, our plan is to resume full in-person education this fall in District 60. So we are excited about that, and this is a sign of things to come. With that, I would like to go to the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will ask my birthday girl, Ms. Hannah, if she would be so kind as to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Hannah, we do not have any special recognition or presentation, so at this time I will go to public comment. We do have the sign-up sheet. Oh, I'm sorry. We have, I just meant it. So before we go to public comment, we are going to go to item 7A, approval of the minutes of the open session meeting of June 8, 2021.
Mr. Riddle, I make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
Motion by Mr. Riddle,
Second.
second by Ms. Lozamo. Any comments? Ms. Washington, any comments, questions, corrections to the minutes? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Conley-Wappian?
Yes.
Ms. Lozamo?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes. All right, item approved, minutes are approved. We are now at item 8A, opportunity for public comment. Just a reminder, public comment is 3 minutes. Do believe we still have our timer, which will be on the screens to the speaker's front and sides. When I call your name, please come to the podium. State your name first and last, and address is optional. We do ask that you avoid mentioning staff or student names in your remarks. If you need translation services will be provided to you, and you will get 6 minutes to allow for translation. The first and only name that appears on my list this evening is Brother Blanks.
Greetings, everybody.
And Mr. Blanks, your time will begin when you start speaking.
The Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee has the authority that explicitly defined in the Illinois School Code. Here is a paragraph directly from the Illinois statute. Open quote. Section 10, 2014. Student Discipline Policies, Parents-Teacher Advisory Committee. To establish and maintain the Parents-Teacher Advisory Committee to develop with the school board or governing bodies of a charter school policy guidelines on pupils' disciplines, including school searches, close quote. The law requires PTAC to develop policies on discipline and on searches with the school board. Avoiding this mandate, the handbook on tonight's agenda describes the PTAC as having an inferior responsibility, that which the law demands. This board would limit PTAC to explaining the handbook and policies to parents, not helping to make policies. PTAC was put into the law to empower parents and teachers negotiate policies with the administrators. Reading again from the Illinois School Code from the same paragraph, quote, open quote, school boards, along with the Parents Teacher Advisory Committee, must annually review their pupil discipline policies, the implementation of those policies, close quote. Past reviews of discipline policy implementation led the previous PTAC to find improper suspensions and disproportionately in the discipline of black students. The administration refused to contact the parents of the students to correct the improper suspensions. This administration has omitted from the its duty of PTAC to review the implementation of discipline policies. Neither the refusal nor the omission accidental. This Board of Education has denied, avoided, or prohibited parents, community, and teachers' participation. The Parents Teacher Advisory Committee that is made of hand-picked choices of the superintendent cannot provide for independent and meaningful voice that would benefit the school district and help this board and this superintendent in the making of the policies. The superintendent, with the board's authority, has recreated the Parents Teacher Committee to be an echo of the superintendent, and an echo is not the contribution of the school district. The people of this community and this student deserve, and the students deserve better. This was drafted by what I consider as the students' attorney, the Susan Walters, and I'll further address more of that as it relates to those issues and those concerns.
Thank you, Brother Blair.
Thank you.
With that, if we can get the agenda back on the screen. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda. This is done in order to expedite the work of the board. Those who attend multiple meetings or any of our meetings know that sometimes they can go wrong. This was a practice that was implemented by the previous board president and continued by me, in which items that are considered non-controversial, routine in nature, and or previously discussed are voted on in a single action. Any board members can request that any item be held over for any reason and voted on separately. With that, our consent agenda is there presented. Do we have a motion to present items A through H?
Mr. Riddle, I so move that we accept the consent agenda items A through H as presented.
Second.
Second by Ms. Wozniak. Any comments, questions on the motion?
Yes, just a brief comment. Item 9B, these are just materials that are going into the middle school. Is that correct, Superintendent?
Ms. Patty, step into the microphone, please.
Is it on? All right. Good evening, members of the board, superintendent, community. Yes, Ms. Hannah, the materials that are listed go directly into the middle school classrooms for student use and for teacher use. All 5 middle schools will have access to the resources, the texts, and the teacher guides. They go directly to the classrooms.
And there was collaboration with this?
This is a renewal of our curriculum from the middle school for our ELA reading courses. And so this is a curriculum that we have had for many number of years, and we are just renewing the student resources and just the books for the kids to have in their hands. The consumables, we want kids to have the novels to take notes on, to mark up, to highlight, so they have their own copies of the novels and the textbooks, and we don't want to have to turn them in every year, and they're marked up. We want students to have their own copies so they can maintain their own libraries, they can take notes as they're learning, and so it's novels and books for the students to take.
All right, so we do have a motion and a second.
Wait, and I have another question. I know that there were some, I'm not sure, because I can't get my thing to work, but it's, yeah, I just, hold on 1 second. Yeah, there's a couple items that that gives me pause because, and I just simply want to ask, that in 9C, there is a statement in the recommended action that says that if the payment is not made before the end of the month, then the district Microsoft services will be turned off. And didn't we have a meeting 2 weeks ago? We had a meeting and we had a long list of items, right? And so my question is, there's several of these statements in the items that we are being presented tonight. And if the deadline was looming so close, why is this just now being brought to us at this time?
Microsoft Services.
The GAGO services, GAGO services as well. You know, and these are things that make our district go. And there should have been some forethought regarding these services, seeing how we already have them. And so I'm just a little concerned that these important items are being just brought to us right now, 3 weeks before school starts.
Good evening, Mr. President, Superintendent Plasencia, board members, community members, and colleagues. Ms. Hannah, thank you for the question. These services for CDW, Microsoft services, and other contracts that you see that we have, I'd like to remind, Microsoft services, we have them for over 10 years in the school district. And normally we receive the invoices 30 days before. And when the budget is approved, that's when we come to the board to request for the approval permission. Now that the budget for the new fiscal year is being approved and assigned to the IDS department, that's what you see up here.
And I'm not going to belabor it at all, but we had a large number of items at the last board meeting, and this was not one, but when there's statements in there that it's kind of like if you don't do this now, then the board doesn't approve this, then we're not going to get this. Okay. What happens if we had had a tornado, we couldn't get here? Then our services would have been cut off?
No.
That's my point.
Yeah, no, services will not be cut.
That's my point, sir. That the timing of this, okay, we need to do a little better when we're bringing things of this importance to the board for approval.
So am I understanding you, Dr. Carlos, you're stating that the bill just came in 30 days ago, and that's why you're now bringing this to
That's correct. We don't have the invoice, so for us to know what's going to be the actual cost for us to request the dollar amount, so we need to wait to receive that invoice so that we can present it.
And as a result, at our previous meeting, Ms. Hannah, and you were the one that was really an advocate for this, about we needed to come back and sign some things prior to the start of school. Starting earlier, and that is why we're having a special meeting today to ensure that we're getting everything the board needs to roll out so that we can have a successful opening.
I understand.
Wouldn't the authorizations be there already? Didn't the board approve it? We had approved authorization extending, these kind of things.
Absolutely.
So really, it's just being brought
Special meeting, and so it was done the right way. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, is we're not having this meeting to approve these items, but because we're having this meeting, we're taking the legal vote to approve these items.
That's it.
So it's not more complicated than that. These are renewals.
Right.
Things that we already have in the sense they are really important. And so the request, so that if we capture it, is that we plan for things as far in advance.
Correct.
I know what Ms. Hannah is saying is at times if we're saying, well, we need to do this or in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks, it puts pressure on the board where if there were questions or things that we needed to hold over, we want as much time as possible to be able to consider. But in this scenario, once again, we're not having this meeting to approve these items. We're having a meeting, therefore the items will put on the agenda so that we can take the board approval. With that, we have a motion and a second for items A through H. We have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Conjure Watley? Yes. Ms. Leguizamo?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes. Items approved, the consent agenda carries, and I'm going to read those, so we can go back up. Item 10A, approval of renewal of Pace Regional Transportation Authority Agreement. Sorry, that was 9A. 9B, purchase of teacher guides, student novels, and student text resources for middle schools. 9C, CDWG Microsoft Services. 9D, renewal of Nearpod for 2021-2022 school year. Item 9E, GACO Services. 9F, approval of facility rental waiver request for Joaquin Band Foundation. 9G, request for approval of the reimbursement of conference fees to district nurse coordinator Adriana Dobbs for attendance at the National Association of School Nurses Conference for $400. And 9H, approval to attend the 2021 National School Safety Conference. With that, we are now at item 10A, which is the Edith M. Smith Middle School branding and signage.
It is the recommendation of the administration and the Board of Education to authorize the purchase of materials for rebranding of Edith M. Smith Middle School.
Mr. Riddle, so moved.
A second.
There was a motion by Mr. Riddle, the second was from Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments or questions on the motion? Roll call vote.
Signage and logos
Hmm?
to redo the whole school,
Sign
the logos.
Can somebody just elaborate for the public to know exactly what we're going to turn in the school, what we
Ms. Patty?
And Ms. Patty, could you also address the permanent signage for the building?
Absolutely. The permanent signage is actually being funded through our operations department, and that has been installed. I believe it's ready for our picnic event on Saturday. So the marquee is being redone, and the signage on the outside of the building is being redone. The operations team can clarify a little bit more about the outside details. The order that Mr. McBride was asking questions about is for the signage around the building, in the hallways, above the hallway entrances, on the insides and outsides of the doors, in the cafeteria, just really trying to bring the school's name to life so the students can see. I'm going to be excited about the new logo, the new name, and honor Ms. Smith. So it's an opportunity for them to really add a lot of branding and the way that Carmen Buckner looks with Mr. Silva's Carmen decorations and everything around everywhere. Ms. Brown and Ms. Mangino, the AP, have spent a lot of time trying to think through how they can add that type of style and excitement to the hallways, to the doorways, to the windows, decals, and things like that.
They're going to have some type of narrative on a plaque or somewhere.
Yes, Ms. Brown is working to get a
explaining-
portrait of Ms. Smith in the front entryway, and so we are looking at getting some photos of her and some portraits so we can make the entryway really honor her. Yes.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? Sure. Does this or does this not include Edith Smith's branding in other schools, per se, like the flags that we have up in our middle school conferences at every single middle school?
I can double check on that. I don't know off the top of my head the answer to that. I'm sorry. I can get back to you on that though.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
All right, we have a first and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Conjure Watley? Yes. Ms. Leguizamo?
Absolutely, yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. Item 10B, renewal expansion of becoming a man, BAM, for 2021-2022 school year.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to approve the renewal and expansion of becoming a man, BAM, in the amount of $931,616.02 for the 2021 through 2022 school year.
Sorry, excuse me. I was gonna make a motion to hold this item over until our next meeting.
I second that motion.
I just want to, and Ms. Hannah can add, but I want to hold it over because I have, I would just like to see a more robust evaluation of the program
Absolutely.
and adapted goals and how they help support students through COVID.
Absolutely.
So we have a motion to hold these items over. I am going to, what I'll do is I'll continue down with the other items. There is a presentation, so if we get to the presentation and then there are specific questions, if the board is comfortable with coming back, we can vote on this evening, or we can address it in 2 weeks. But we did not get a motion or a second to move forward. As such, we will, like I said, we can bring it back and after the presentation. So we're going to
Point of
continue.
order, sir. Point of order is that the board member asked for it to be held over. And she did have a second to the motion. And so it really should be held over and not held to the end of the meeting.
So if it's
Because I was going to
a
speak.
point of order, we have a first and a second to hold it over. So sure, roll call vote on holding it over.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
No.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Lozano?
Yes.
Ms. Connie Wozniak?
No.
Mr. Ewing?
No. With that, like you said, and as a point of order, the board president can move things in the agenda. But because the majority of the board has asked for it to be held over, this item will be held over until our next board meeting in 2 weeks. 10C, request to approve the contract for Colleen.
Because question, but you said there was a presentation?
Yeah, it's a presentation, that's why I just said to move it.
But we still see the presentation?
Yes, sir, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
So we have item 10C, which is a request to approve the contract for Colleen. I believe that's Michael's bilingual speech and language pathologist evaluator.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to approve the contract of Colleen Michaels as district bilingual evaluator, SLP, in the amount of $100 for 1 year.
100,000.
Is that 100,000?
Yes, 100,000.
100,000.
Okay, 100,000. They typed it wrong.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McBride, the second was Mr. Riddle. Any comments or questions on the motion? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
No.
Ms. Connie Wozniak?
Yes.
Ms. Lozano?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes. Item approved, motion carries. We are now at item 10D, request to purchase tutor-mate for 2021-2022 school year.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to approve the purchase of tutor-mate in the amount of $282,000 for the fiscal year 2021 through 2022.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McBride, second was Mr. Riddle. Any comments or questions on the motion?
Yeah.
Question.
I got it.
Go ahead, Ms. Lozano.
Sorry for who's presenting on this one, if they have the answer or not, but we're opting in for the virtual portion of this, right? This is not in-person tutoring. I just wanted to get that clarification.
Yeah.
Dr. Cesario?
Yeah. Sorry about that, I was looking at something else. So the tutor-mate, yeah, right now it is, we are signing up for we are signing up for the in-person. So it'll scaffold up over the next 2 years, starting with kindergarten, every kindergarten classroom. will have in-person and also an electronic portion where students are getting tutoring. But it'll be a person that will be working to develop phonemic awareness. I think there's a accompanying material there, but their success rate is very high. The goal is to have the majority, if not all, of students reading at grade level by the end of second grade.
Thank you for that clarification.
So it'll be every kindergarten classroom this year. It'll scaffold up to first grade the next year. So it'll be K1 next year, and then the following year will be K1-2. So we'll have all of those classrooms that will be getting this kind of support.
Ms. Hannah?
Yeah, and that was what part of my question, regarding the grade levels that this tutor mate was going to service, and we are still leaving students behind because all students at grade level in elementary need phonetic education to catch them up, whether they're in kindergarten or fifth grade. They need to be caught up, and if we're going to give tutoring of this type to just kindergartners, we are still going to be leaving students behind.
So this particular tutor mate focuses specifically on, this is their program focusing on acquiring early literacy skills. So they focus on kindergarten, first and second. In terms of the other grade levels and developing reading skills and catching up, we have been investigating and looking at other tutoring companies. One right now that we're looking at and would cover all the grades between that tutor mate would not. So we want to make sure that we are being targeted in what we're doing, but tutor mate specifically focuses on ensuring that students read on grade level. And we know based on the research that if students have a strong foundation in literacy coming out of kindergarten and moving up in through the early grades of primary, that it really does support their development and the fact that they will be on grade level by grade 3.
Ms. Wozniak?
So you can't have them also tutor first and second at this time?
So this is the way that this is their program model. And I did ask that question.
You can't have.
They specific, that's how they've developed their program, and that's how they've laid it out. I asked the same thing, can we do this all at once? Same question that Ms. Hannah was asking, why can't we go up into the other grades first? But they only work with, it's specifically K-2, but then also starting in kindergarten, scaffolding up to the next grade, and then to the third grade. They don't do a spectrum to the middle school.
So why did we pick that program? Why did we continue to search until we found something that is going to service our children, not a program that they have? We need programs that are going to...
They have a proven success record.
Excuse me, sir, I'm not...
Sure.
And we need programs that are going to service all of our children, okay? Not just a portion of them. And if that company could not do that, they don't need our money. And we're spending our money, okay, for their services, okay? And so if it does not serve our purpose, why are we spending money for it?
I think, we looked at the research and what the research was stating about acquiring early literacy skills.
$2,000?
And so, starting early, if students can acquire those basic skills early on, it's going to be a lot easier to have students who are on grade level in third grade rather than trying to catch up. So we are trying to address the other needs. As I said, we looked at other tutoring services. There is some information sitting that the superintendent and I are looking over in terms of providing services to our other students. But this is specifically related to early literacy skills. And to early primary.
May I also say something?
Yeah.
It's also a very distinct way on how you teach primary literacy versus how you teach literacy 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. You build on awareness. This is a targeted approach for primary literacy. So the board, we do not, I would say, be cautious of getting caught up that there's one brand that fits all. And this is ESSER money. This money was given to districts across our state to ensure that we're closing the COVID slide during this time of the pandemic. And this is a targeted approach for primary literacy of kids that have probably not even been in our building, came in from kindergarten to sit at home, or 1st grade if they opted out. So I do want to remind the board that just because it's not one brand that goes K through 12, does not make this a bad program. What Dr. Sassari was saying is they have proven results on primary literacy, targeted for our early readers, who many have not even finished our buildings as of yet.
Where you say they have proven results, where, I would like to see
Dr.
those
Sassari,
results.
They have meta-analyses and other research that they provided, and we can certainly turn that over. I believe there's information there, I don't know.
So I don't know if there was a specific question.
I just proposal was just about how much and what they were this and that, and it had nothing to do with what they were going to be teaching.
I also want to remind the board that we have experts in primary literacy who sit on the ASAP team and who look and vet these companies, right? That they have experience and knowledge in regards to how we are going to move the academic needle and give these children support who have not yet been in school or will be in school for the first time come the fall.
And one more question. Was there a collaboration with the building principals, some of the lead teachers about this program, or it was a collaboration where did they have input into it?
We had discussions with the area superintendents. We talked to the team. I believe we did vet this through the PLT and to get their insight on this. We were acting with a sense of urgency because we know that we want to be prepared. I do want to say that with the influx of money, we're not the only district that is receiving money. There are resources that are available, and in order to start this process, because it is going to be in every classroom, we waited until now. We were going to present this earlier, but we wanted to make sure that we had everything in order. And so this is what we believe would be in the best interest of our students, to provide them with one-on-one tutoring in kindergarten for next year, and then moving on into the 1st grade and 2nd grade.
Ms. Langzon?
I'm sorry, I need a clarification in regards to the payment options, right? So it's $282,000, and that is, and the contract is written for one contract year. So technically, this is only for the kindergarten this contract year, and are we anticipating the following 2 years to be an increased amount?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
it would gradually increase as it comes, and it would be renewal every year?
Yes,
Okay.
it's yes.
Okay.
So they scheduled up, and then of course we'd evaluate the effectiveness as we moved on. But again, based on the research that was presented, based on the track record, we believe that this is something that would be an asset and would be helpful to our students. Sir?
Mrs. Blackmon, to her question, so you saying the money is earmarked for 2 years, that's given to us?
For this program, so we only, what Ms. Langzon was asking about is if we were only paid for 1 year of this program. We're only paying 1 year at a time. So we're going to scaffold up.
Now possibly doing it the 2nd year.
Ideally, the idea is that the kindergartners, when they move up to 1st grade, they would continue with this. It would be a slightly different program than they had in the previous year. And then the new incoming kindergartners would also get it. So we'd have every classroom at kindergarten, every classroom at 1st grade. This would be in the next school year.
Providing you see growth and success.
Well, and we'd have to evaluate the effectiveness of the program, and that would be something that we would be talking about and looking at. And, you know, I don't know if 1 year is enough to give, especially because it's a transitional year, coming back from COVID and having students who were not in pre-K, I would say we probably, idealistically and realistically, I think give 2 years. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the administration. The board had brought this up a month or two ago where we signed a resolution to put, Mrs. Hammond had brought us information, we read that and discussed it, how important phonetics was. And this is an effort to hit all of our kindergarten children and all of our elementary schools. I think this is extremely important. And so as we have the ESSER money, I think it's a wise use of that money this year, and evaluate this program and come back to the board next year and let us know if you thought this was a good program. But I think it's good that we're doing this and that we're making this emphasis, because phonetics in reading is extremely important, and we have to get these kids early as they learn, to read between K through third grade. So
and that was the logic, Mr. Riddle. It was to start early, and it was based on the recommendations that were made by Ms. Anita Hanna, and that she stressed through that resolution. So
I'd be very interested in finding next year what the results were of this. And thank you for putting forward this effort to get this program and find it, and one that has a track record. So
thank you.
See the track record,
Sure. We can send you the information.
And I want to capture what I feel is Ms. Hannah's heart, is I think we're doing two different things. And so you have one approach, which we're taking right now, and what it looks like for TutorMate, which is you want to grow strong readers from the start, right? And so if you start with kindergarten and then scaffold up, then that means that hopefully by the time they get to second grade, we have a higher percentage that are reading on grade level, therefore we won't need as many supports. Where Ms. Hannah's heart is coming from is we want to make sure that we have resources for those students that we know that are coming back that are also deficient. So while I agree with the superintendent that this program is not a one-size-fits-all, what Ms. Hannah is asking for, she wants to hear the plan. If this does not address K through 5 or K through 8, then what is the plan for those first graders who are coming back? And so I'm not saying that we want that tonight, but I want to make sure that that is captured in the conversation.
And may I just say that actually that is something that did not go. I have information on it right now. It's not ready to present to the board. I talked to anything that the team looks at, examines, works through. We do share when we discuss with the superintendent. We were looking at the cost of it. And before we wanted to present that to the board, but there are options that we looked at to fill in for those grade levels. At this point would be 1 through grade 12. They're quite costly. I'm just going to say that before it's presented to the district.
43 million.
I know, but if you see it, and I'm not even going to say anymore, Ms. Hannah, when you see the...
43 million.
So it's not okay. So I want to make sure that that's what's captured. That Ms. Hannah, your concerns are not being overlooked. It's understood what it is that you're saying.
Yes.
This is one specific program, and Deputy Cesario is looking at an opportunity to address the needs of those other students.
Yes, sir.
So we do have a motion and a second on the floor. So I would like a roll call vote, please.
Thank you.
Riddle?
yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Tanya Wapniak? Yes. Ms. Lozano?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Yes, item approved, motion carries. Now I have item 10E, which is approval to purchase Working on Womanhood While Youth Guidance.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to approve the purchase of Working on Womanhood WOW for the 2021 through 2022 school year in the amount of $691,547.90.
Mr. Board President, I'd like to hold this item over as well, because it goes with BAM.
So we have a request to hold this item over. There wasn't a...
I'll second that.
Yeah, so we have first and second to hold the item over. Because it's been officially first and seconded, are there any questions or comments?
And this is for E, right? I'm so glad.
Yeah, with this, Board President, would we get a presentation about this group as well? I know we had a presentation when we first hired BAM, and they did present a little bit about the women. on women, working on womanhood, and it looked like a similar program targeted at women. They've had a track record and some success, but do we, I guess,
So there was a presentation that was attached. We do have a first and a second to hold the item over. If we're holding the item over, we can't present it for discussion.
And you made a motion?
We already have a motion and a second.
Oh, okay, and a second, okay.
So, Ms. Vandermark, it would be fine, if during superintendent's time, if they wanted to, present on this. Is that okay, superintendent?
Yeah, I just, Dr. Cesario, holding this over, would this delay any services for the start of the school year around social emotional health? Or I do want to ask that question so the board can understand that, even though.
I'm gonna let Chief Dr. Knowles discuss that. I think has a better idea of the timeline.
Hi, good evening, Superintendent, Board President, Board, community members. Delaying, holding that in over, the only thing that would be delayed would be the staffing of the counselors. They are very thorough with their hiring process, so it would delay, it would push back the timeline to hire those counselors for the schools that we're targeting. That said, if the board would like more information on BAM, it's a sister program to BAM, so it would make sense for them to come out, use guidance to do presentation on both programs all at one time if the board requests.
Thank you. I mean, I do know it's going to be held over, but I do just want the board to understand that that slow gives a delay in counseling services for our students as they return back to the classroom. Thank you, Dr. Knowles.
Board President, based on what the superintendent just said, though, I think I'm going to withdraw my second, okay, because I feel that our kids, our students returning need all the counseling help they can get this year. They spent a year and a half away from school, and I would rather evaluate this program since the administration looked at it previously. I know it had some great recommendations, and I think we should try it. That since we're using ESSER funds available, we know there's a need, a great need, and this is again a program with a track record. They're there, so I'm going to withdraw my second.
And I will in turn, I'll get second the motion.
The motion to hold it over?
Yeah, hold it over.
I'd like to motion to approve the agenda item.
I'll second that.
Good. We have to first
I got
on.
it. Yes, we have to act on the motion that's currently on the floor. So we have a first and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle?
No.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Cohen-Watson?
No.
Ms. Lozano?
No.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes. So we will hold the item over. I will ask that we have just a presentation. Once again, I want to make sure with the administration, it's not that the work hasn't been done, but you all know this was a special meeting, right? And so typically we discuss these things at committee meeting. My only comment to the board is we have a board agreement. And as such, if there are questions or concerns about the items, I would ask is that they be presented to myself and the superintendent. So a lot of what you see is because there was a lot of information that was put into the board packets in order that it was there, so that if the board did have questions, they could get those questions answered prior to tonight's meeting. And because we got very few questions, there weren't very many concerns about moving forward. And so now that there are concerns, we would have avoided this by following our board protocols. So I do just want to make that to the public and to the board, is there wasn't a goal to sneak things through to do anything. It was to have a meeting. They put a lot of effort into, at the direction of the board, making sure that the information was there from presentations and cost and all the money, so that we would be able to ask those questions. So once again, I would like us to follow our board protocols when we get these agendas to just send the questions, because again, even if you get into them the day of, they typically can get you, responses within a couple hours. Ms. Hannah?
Yes, I would say that if the I understand that we are, I understand your protocol, what you said about the board agreement, okay, but also that how are we going to vote on something and then have a presentation after the vote?
No, the presentations were attached, is what I'm saying. So if there
No,
were
I understand.
questions about it, that those questions could have been asked beforehand is my only point. And that's in line with the board agreement.
Did you get my question?
No, the only questions I got were the ones that I asked you for. I don't know, Superintendent, did you receive any questions?
No, I'm talking about the questions
Yeah,
that,
that's separate, I asked for those. That had nothing to do with the agenda.
okay, but, I mean,
So we are at item, and I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. McBride.
Well, just to clarify my vote, I don't like voting on something when I get a snapshot of it. We have MTSS, which is here, doing some of the same work that we are expecting land to do. And it just behooved me, when I don't know nothing, they did it a year. And at this point, I kind of did a little homework. I've been around looking, and some things that I've seen that I wasn't just comfortable with. That's why I'm voting the way I'm voting. And I don't want to just throw money out there, and I feel it's not going to be conducive to the issues that we're dealing with our children. So that's kind of where I'm at.
And I'd like to make a comment since I voted to hold it over as well. When it comes to social emotional learning, absolutely. I think that that's what our students deserve. I think that, given COVID and everything that we've experienced pre-pandemic anyway in our district, because of our hometown and all the struggles that we've experienced here, it's important that they get quality people in front of them. And maybe they are the people that, this was voted on before I came, but what I was upset to see is that some of the PDFs and the stuff that's in there was presented at the same time a year ago. I want to see what they've accomplished during this time, and I will hardcore vouch for them if they, managed to tell me that compared to the goals or adapted goals through COVID, that they've helped the 20 or 30 kids at each middle school to continue their schooling, to log on to their virtual classes. So I get the conversation around this. I also understand my role as a board member, bringing questions to the board and the superintendent about the programs. But I also think that, it's about having foresight. If we're going to keep hiring these people, I want them to do good work and to know that they have to also be providing data.
that's right.
So it was, the motion to hold over did pass, which means, Ms. Levisano, we will hold it over, but I did hear your motion, but we could only entertain one motion at a time. So that item will be brought up in 2 weeks at a special board meeting. And in that time, I would ask that any questions be submitted so that they can get answered in a more detailed presentation if necessary. We have item 10F, which is installation of the new Aruba wireless infrastructure for non-school admin building.
It is a recommendation that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to approve the installation, programming, and testing of the new Aruba wireless infrastructure for non-school buildings unless installed wireless access will expire after September 12, 2021. The estimated cost is $170,000. Funds from Information Technology Systems Network Purchase Services account will be used.
And this,
We have a motion? Motion by Mr. McBride.
Second.
Second by Ms. Gonzalez. Any comments or questions on the motion?
I just had a question regarding the budget source.
Go ahead, Ms. Hanna.
Here it says the Information Technology Systems Network Purchase Services account, and this is local money, or is this grant money?
The purchase for the network equipment is coming from local funds. Those are for buildings that E-rate do not cover the purchase for network equipment. And what we're purchasing there is the Aruba access points.
And with this system here, the Aruba Infrastructure, okay, is that, how is that going to help the district school buildings?
So the E-rate program already approved of the purchase for all the buildings. So this is the Wi-Fi infrastructure. So these devices, if we look here, we have an access point right there in the ceiling. There's one access point that we have there. We have also one here in the back. So that technology is outdated. And so that's why E-rate, they approved the new purchase. So we operated, we're in the process of operating the buildings. Now, E-rate, they do not cover buildings where we do not have a student. For example, Lincoln Center, the warehouse, operations, so these buildings are not covered under E-rate. So to keep the infrastructure consistent, so we need to operate the systems as we're doing at the school.
When you say that the system is outdated, when was the system put in? Do you have some?
Yes, those
specific
systems,
dates?
they're like 7 years old now.
And that's outdated?
Yes.
Yeah, I know, but that was one of the things from the very, very beginning about all of this technician, all of this technology. The more technology that you put in, the more technology you're gonna have to keep purchasing.
That's correct.
And, you know, I mean, 7 years.
And the other thing that we need to keep in mind, the infrastructure that we have today was to support the Chromebook 1-to-1 initiative for grade 6 to 12. Now that we are district-wide Chromebook initiative from 3K to 12, the traffic that we're going to have in the network have doubled. So the infrastructure, you know, is going to be required to support the new devices that we have.
So this item here will impact the school buildings.
This one in particular that is presented, no. This will impact buildings like Lincoln Center that we do not have students, operations, and the warehouse.
Dr. Cuevas, why is AOEC listed here? Is that a mistake? Because they have.
No, the reason why AOEC is there is because AOEC is registered with the state that they do not receive lunch. So in order to qualify for E-rate funds, you need to qualify to receive lunch.
For lunch, I see, thank you.
They had the lunches over there. They had the little lunchroom over at AOEC at one time. It was taken out. Yes, they had the lunchroom over there when they took it out, so.
Yeah. So I think what this is saying is, it's putting the district, the same thing. We already passed it and are using E-rate funds to upgrade the school building infrastructures and then.
Correct. It's to be consistent with the infrastructure.
So we do have a motion for the second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Dr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Eagle?
Yes, item approved, motion carried. We got item 10G, renewal of Asian Human Services, AHS, for 2021-2022 school year.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education authorize the superintendent to approve the renewal and expansion of Asian Human Services, AHS, in the amount of $413,796 for the school year 2021 through 2022. So moved.
Motion by Ms. Wozniak, second by Mr. McBride. Any comments or questions on the motion?
Yeah, I'd like for this to be held over as well until we can see some the impacting of students in this program.
So there's a motion, there's a second. Ms. Hannah's asking that it be held over. Does anybody withdraw the motion? Now, there is a presentation attached. Are we able to pull that up and somebody speak to it very?
Well, I looked at the presentation, Mr. President, and it simply talks about the people that they're aiming to serve, that they're proposing to serve. Excuse me, Ms. Callahan. I looked at the graphs, and there was nothing substantiated as to how this agency helped any of the students, and anybody can put anything on paper in a presentation, but where are the results? Where are the results? That's all, and I'm talking student results. Where are they? We keep bringing in programs, spending money for programs. Where are the results for the kids? Where are the results?
Dr. Noel, please.
Yeah. Good evening again, everyone. Just as a reminder to the board, we have been giving quarterly updates on Asian Human Services and BAM throughout this entire year. And the two presentations that you'll see at the end of the agenda this evening are the end of the year updates for those two programs. So Ms. Gonzalez, I understand you're a board member, so you probably were not on board in the beginning of the year when we did the updates. But that information was requested by the board for these two programs, and both programs have been giving us the data and the impact and the information quarterly that has been presented and shared with the board. So for this item, essentially, we're just asking to renew the partnership with Asian Human Services for the next school year. Again, kind of the same situation with BAM and WOW. If the item is held over, it will prevent the Asian Human Services from staffing counselors in the schools to support the students and the families. It's my understanding that the majority of them are that have already been placed in the schools this past year will be returning once the renewal is voted on and approved.
And do you have the 6, we have a full staff for Asian Human Services?
We had 5 of the 6. 5 of the 6.
Is there a caveat in this contract which states that we prefer that they hire locally?
There is, and it's same with the BAM contract as well. Every effort has been made by both organizations to hire within Waukegan first, and then the Lake County area second. So we do have a wide range of counselors that are from the area that are servicing and working in our schools and with our families.
So okay, again, I'll ask the question. Where are the results for our students? Can you present the presentation?
Let me say something too, if I could, Ms. Hannah. I believe that this past year and a half has been a very difficult one. You know, and so these
everybody in the world.
But see, that's the thing, go ahead, Mr.
Okay, so what I would like to say is that both of these organizations, BAM, but let's talk about Asian Human Services, they made extensive presentations to this board before COVID. They have a long track record of service working with children. They have results. Now, I don't think we can expect them to have the positive, the impact that they had in previous years with COVID. It's impossible. You know, our best teachers in the world couldn't keep kids engaged during COVID. Now we know these kids are returning in the fall, and we know they're coming back with a lot of issues. I think we need to have some agencies out there and trust that an agency that had a wonderful track record previously will be able to do something now when they're meeting in person with our children who need help. So I'm going to vote for this, okay? I don't think we want to table this motion. We're going to be behind the 8 ball. We're going to lose these counselors that we already have. Yes, we have 5 counselors already. We need 1 more. I think we should approve this and trust that our administration has done some research and knows, and we know ourselves that this organization has done and has a track record of working with children. And now that we're going to need to work with our kids, and they'll be able to do it effectively. We need to have a year where they can meet in person. So I'm going to vote for this.
And I will, that's your prerogative, sir, but I'm going to keep my stance, and that is why we have Waukegan school district social work program. We have social workers in our school district, and we have MTSS in our school district that we're paying, combine them all, we're paying millions for just our staff. And now we're getting ready to pay millions upon millions more for outside agencies. And the only thing that they could say that they spent 5,702 hours, okay, with who? Well, if they didn't do anything during COVID, then where did they get this 5,702 hours? Where did they get the 541 students and families? Okay, during COVID, you're saying that they couldn't do anything.
Ms. Hannah, can I respond to that question?
Yeah,
Okay, our best counselors here I talked to some of our counselors, they had a very, very difficult time engaging students in remote situations. So, I mean, this agency too had a great difficult time, and the board, remember, approved this before COVID. So I think we need to give them a chance to do their job with our students who are going to need help as they return in the fall. So,
Yeah, and I'd like to, sorry, Mr. Reader, for cutting up, just to make a comment, and not that I'm trying to convince you, Ms. Hannah, because I respect your decision, but I also, for the record, just want to say, not to do a comparative analysis, but I like seeing Asian Human Services say that we've done the 5,000 hours, we've impacted 500 families, as opposed to saying that, as opposed to BAM, we're not meeting our metrics in terms of how many students we projected for our middle school enrollment. And I get it, they were working on recruitment for some of their counselors as well, but, that's where my confidence was with this program as opposed to the other. If BAM can produce that, absolutely, it's 100% for me, but that's what I was missing.
So then we're going to have a group of students that are going to be excelling, the ones that this agency has worked with. We're gonna see those results in this coming school year. This school year, we get ready to start August 12th. Is that what you're saying, Dr. No? That they work those miracles like that?
What are the metrics of the program and what is it designed to accomplish? Right, so I think that's why I want to make sure those are two different things, right? When we say excel, what does that mean? Excelling when you're talking about mental health is different than excelling when you're talking about academics. Right. But we also understand that there's a correlation, right? But I think that I want to make sure that we know what the goals of the program will be, because holding them to a standard that's not the standard of the goals of the program that the board approved would be disingenuous and unfair. So, but when it says the 541 students, Dr. No and Deputy Cesario understand and know my questions that I've had about AHS since the beginning, but I don't know if you want to respond to any of that. But then we do have a first and a second on the floor. So go ahead, Dr. No.
I was just going to say, President, excuse me, you're exactly right. The impact is on the mental health of the students. That's where we see the biggest impact in these services, which ultimately would lead to, I'm not going to say that they're going to be overperforming or anything like that, but would ultimately lead to more, hopefully more stability in the classroom as well. So to meet the needs of the students. Go ahead.
Dr. No. I just respectfully to the board, I want to remind the board that we are starting August 12th. Our kids have been out more than a year. We do not know what we are going to face the minute they walk in our building. So we need to have every support possible for every specific situation, every individual situation. And I understand there's packets, but our inability to act is going to hurt kids. And I have to voice that as the superintendent of this district, because I have babies who have been at home and have been in deplorable conditions. I've had babies that probably have not been eating, and we are going to have to service all types of trauma. And we do not know what that looks like. No one in our country knows what that looks like. And none of us are prepared. Nobody in this room or in our nation was prepared for the pandemic that has hit our country and has devastated us, and we will be making up this time for decades to come.
So it is imperative when those babies come in August 12th that we are ready for them. Our teachers are ready to teach. Our teachers have other resources. We have supplements. We have resources. As a result, why our state has given ESSER funds and has given us more money to ensure that we are putting these monies directly to impact classrooms and students. And at a previous meeting, the board talked about what are we going to do with these ESSER funds. We want to see that they're directly impacting students. The administration has come back and has given you a number of programs that are directly going to impact individual students with the lens on equity. So just respectfully keeping that in mind, that push date is not going to go back. All these kids are coming back effective August 12th. And that's not even, 4 weeks away.
Mr. McBride.
I think the concern here is whether or not this program is impacting our children, whether or not our children are getting a bang for their buck out of the dollar that we spend with these individuals that we bring in the district. So for one way to me, for transparency to know whether they're doing anything, not because you come and talk to me. When you had truancy coming and saying that our truancy went down, when you have climate control specialists that's dealing with the kids for problem areas, those disciplinary factors that went down. It's things like that that let me know that the people that we have hired is impacting our children. But when I continue to hear a kid is being sent to alternative school because he was arguing with the teacher or he was being disrespectful to the teacher, or when I hear that a student came to school and was in the classroom smoking weed, when I hear there was a fight on the bus, or when I hear there was a fight in the classroom, but when I hear the truancy and climate control specialists and social workers coming to the board and saying, well, things have been improved because of the fact that BAM has been in there and made some changes, MTS has been in there and made some changes, but I'm not hearing that. All I'm hearing is what I hear, and that's it. And so that's why. And then when I don't hear, I go out myself and try to do my own homework. So when I go into one of the schools, and I look and see the person that's supposed to be working for BAM, and he's got one student. Come on now. And he's dealing with that student on virtual. I'm looking for, well, I know you can't have 10 students in a room, a conference room, talking to them about life skills and anything else. So I'm like, what are we really doing?
And not to cut you off, Mr. McBride, or add fire to the flame, but if someone is telling me 6 clinicians can impact 500 families, and someone else is asking for $1 million to do the same with less people or more people, I've got to be critical. I've got to be critical. So I'm not undermining the need. I think that's where Mr. McBride was what he was trying to get at.
And that's my problem. It's not so fact, not so much of BAM. I just, again, when I see and hear, I went to look, but when I hear the people in the building that's dealing with all these problems that our children have, that's when I know that the program is working. Jason, I can't think of Jason, was it long?
Yeah.
But Jason, he had come in, and not only had he come in, I said, oh, we claimed you, and watch what he was doing. I mean, I was over there, and I watched what he was doing, and I've seen some significant change. And I'm looking at the change, my own self. But then I go to another school, and then not only that, when I hear the administrator and tell me the people in the building give me some bad data on what's going on, then I got a problem. But I'm looking at it myself. And then I go to, I'm looking at individuals that's supposed to be what we so-called counselors. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. And that's why I'm reluctant right now. Not to say that the program is not needed. As the superintendent said, yes, our kids and our babies need some confidence right now with everything that's going on around them. I have that in my own home right now with my kids and stuff are discombobulated because of the fact of the COVID. So I do understand all of that. But that's why I sat here and I voted no.
Well, we will come back and make a presentation on BAM so the board can make a more informed vote, but this vote on the floor is for Asian Human Services, and I don't want to mix the two, so that there's confusion on what the vote is on the floor.
Ms. Hannah, you have the final word, then we vote.
Yes, and with all due respect, Superintendent, yes, everyone in the world was impacted by the coronavirus, all schools across the nation, and we have not been in session with our children for just about, I want to say maybe 14 months, since March 2020 up until now. And all of these things that we're talking about right now, all of this stuff should have been talked about, discussed among the teams, your teams. The school administration has had over an entire year to get all of these things worked out, talked about, presented to the board, with fixing things, taking things out. We have had an entire year without students. And so, to get to, again, the 11th hour, seems a little customary, we get to the 11th hour, and now we're trying to push things through to make sure that on August 12th, when our students come back to class, that they have everything that they need. We have had an entire year plus months to get all of this stuff ready for full-time student return.
So if you read the caption, this is a renewal of Asian Human Services. So that states that through this whole year, we have been working with them. This is not an 11th hour button that we are pushing. This is a renewal.
So we got a motion and a second, roll call vote.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
No.
Ms. Conlon Wozniak?
Yes.
Mr. Lozamo?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes. Item approved, motion carries. Item 11A, we are holding over. Item 11B, personnel, 7/15/21.
It is the recommendation that the Board of Education accept the administration's recommendation to approve the appointments and accept the retirements and resignations as found on schedules F961, L908, and G619.
Mr. Riddle, I so move.
Motion by Mr. Riddle.
Second.
Second by Ms. Lozamo. Any comments or questions on the motion? Roll call vote.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Conlon Wozniak?
Yes.
Mr. Lozamo?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes. Item approved, motion carries. We have a couple of administrative appointments.
At this time, I'd like to recognize Ms. Sarah Durbin, who previously served as the front-end manager in Grays Lake, will now serve as a payroll specialist at Lincoln Center for $38,500. Welcome, Ms. Durbin. Our next appointment is Mr. Jose Garcia, who previously served as a case manager in Waukegan. He will now serve as a culture and climate specialist at Abbott Middle School with a starting salary of $55,000. Congratulations, Mr. Garcia. At this time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Valerie Rivera, who was previously a fifth grade teacher in Antioch, Illinois. She will now serve as a new assistant principal at Clearview Elementary with a starting salary of $74,500. Congratulations, Ms. Rivera. If I called your name and you're in the audience, can you please stand? I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. So,
Thank you, and welcome to District 60. All right, we are now at item 13A, 2021 Young Creek Superfund Site Remedial Action.
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Education authorizes the superintendent to approve the payment for 2021 Yeoman Creek Superfund Site Remedial Action in the amount not to exceed $61,473.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Wozniak, second by Mr. Riddle. Any comments or questions on the motion?
Yes, and I asked if the other individuals, entities, taxing bodies, were included in this cost, or is this our portion of this cost?
Ms. Hannah, this is our portion of this cost? The
It's our
other
portion.
individuals have other portions. This is our portion.
Okay, it's our portion.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. McBride?
Yes.
Ms. Hannah?
Yes.
Ms. Connie Wozniak?
Yes.
Ms. Lozano?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes, item approved, motion carries. Reports and presentations, go right down to 14B, student board member report.
Good evening, everyone, board members, superintendent, community members. I hope everyone's doing well. I just want to first apologize for not being here at the previous board meeting. I was actually out of town to New York for a wedding, very much needed. But in today's board meeting, I wanted to talk about the ESSER grant, and in terms of like the percentages, which I did look at in the agenda. I did see we are going with the 20-80%, and that I believe it was $8.6 million, which is 20%. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe we have until 2023 to use this grant in the best way possible. And I think that a start would be creating or even redesigning a room in term for study hall. And I did mention this a lot previously, is where students can go to a place and for study hall, and of course they can go to a teacher that they know if they need help with the class, and of course if that teacher is free. Another thing is using the money, if necessary, which I don't know this, but teachers' mental health training in terms of what signs to look for, what to do in that situation, and how to help the student, what to do about it. And then also, first aid, I think, is a really important tool that people can have, and especially teachers. For example, if a student, God forbid, has a seizure, what to do in that situation, because students probably don't know, and if a teacher or even security, what they can do about it. And then lastly, I do believe that 80% of that money will be good for capital improvement. I think that students going back to environments where they see improved and they love is an important thing, because the environment that they are in is where they will be learning, where they will be socializing, and they will be in that building 5 days a week, sometimes even weekends, depending on hours, days, for sports or clubs. Because Waukegan School District wouldn't be the district without the students and the teachers. But yeah, that's all I wanted to mention today. Thank you.
Good job.
And I want to compliment you. You right on top, because go down to Stevens High School, everything that you mentioned, they have that in the building.
I want to thank you for your advocacy for students. So I know you've been talking about that study hall, and it's important, especially as we talk about tutoring. And so we appreciate those comments, and I know that Ms. Polk will be speaking to the ESSER ARP survey results later in the agenda. All right, so now we have delegates report. Do you have delegates report, Ms. Allen?
Yeah, I just want to make the board members aware that the recognition programs, like you're becoming a master board member and getting your points and stuff, that when I sat on the committee with ISD, and we came up with a different method of calculating school board points. And so there is a notice that was sent out to explain how the new program is working. So hopefully board members will go in and look at that, and if you have any questions or anything, they put the number of our field representative, and she could help you all. But all of our points, you're going for a master board member, you're going for a fellow, all of those things, all of that stuff is changed. Okay, and so you still get your points from where you are now, but I think it's starting in this year that it's going to be just really named different. Yeah. So, but you all should have been given been sent an email with that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. Item 14D, Superintendent's report.
They do have there we go. I just wanted to make the board and our audience and stakeholders aware of some events that are coming up. This weekend we have the official renaming of Edith M. Smith Middle School, previously known as Webster, so I hope that everyone can come out at 1 p.m. Summer school graduation will be on Friday, July 23rd from 5:30 to 6:45 in the Trapp Auditorium. And then we have our back to school giveaway where we will be giving out supplies. That will also take place on July 31st from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at People's Choice, the new People's Choice. And if you've not been in there, my son says it is amazing. And then we have the second renaming, the official renaming celebration for John R. Lewis Middle School on Saturday, August 7th at 1 p.m., previously known as Thomas Jefferson.
Can I ask a question, Superintendent, regarding the signage? The signs that you just showed in the pictures, are those the red one for Webster and the blue one for Jefferson? Well, John Lewis Middle School. Those are not the permanent fixtures, right?
I don't know if these were transposed there, but they will look very similar to this, and having our conversation with Deputy Moulton. So I know that they were on order. I don't know if they're up as of yet.
Okay,
Mr. Moulton is on vacation.
Okay, so, and these are the designs that the principals asked for?
I cannot speak to that. Mr. Moulton worked on that, and Mr. Alajakis has also left because today is his wife's birthday. Eric, do you have an answer?
I was at Smith Middle School 2 days ago, and that's the sign. That's it. So I can't speak to John Lewis, but I saw that 2 days ago.
Is this the sign that the principal wanted?
I'm just verifying. That picture is how I saw it 2 days ago. That's all I know.
Okay, because see, here in the district, the principals were always the ones that were able to choose their signage, and it didn't come from out of operations. The principals, and that's my whole point, are these the signs that the principals wanted?
I can't speak to that. Ms. Hannah would have to come back to the board with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I won't speak to it, but I know that if they were just replaced, so they literally just did copy the same design that was there. And both principals of each school sat on the committees to help choose the names and been super excited about the rebranding process. But if you can confirm that they will run this election. Board President's report. For the sake of brevity, I will pass tonight. Information items, we have Becoming a Man in the Year report.
Dr. Null?
They were going to do it.
Good evening again. Good evening again, everyone. BAM seems to be a highly talked about topic this evening, so we might as well continue the trend. I do have an end of year report that was provided to our MTSS coordinator, Ryan Hawkins, prior to his departure. That kind of summarizes the services provided by BAM this year. Again, doing the counseling remotely was a challenge, not only for BAM, for Aging Services, for other organizations as well. But this is kind of the same summary that has been presented to the board previously. At the end of, we did one at the end of quarter one. We did one at the end of quarter two. We did not do one at the end of quarter three. We just waited to do an EOI report, which is this one essentially. So in the attachment, you'll see a summary of some of the impact that the BAM had in our schools. As I mentioned earlier, they do have a very robust hiring process, which I'm actually very happy about. They're very thorough with who they hire and how they hire. As a result, they were only able to hire 5 of the 6 counselors this year for the program. In total, they received about 295 student referrals for either individual and or group counseling. I'm not going to read this entire report to you, but they're essentially trying to insert themselves into as many schools and classrooms as possible virtually, introducing themselves, trying to, they were attending team meetings at the schools remotely, of course, trying to get the word out about the program, recruit students through the referral process, etc. As you can see, they're meeting regularly with student support teams, grade level teams, getting parental consents, calling parents, calling students, and then summer programming. They were a huge part of summer programming as well. I did reach out to a couple principals today just to kind of have them provide me some highlights of their impact for the summer. All of our BAM counselors that were staff were part of the 6th grade step-up ceremonies that have taken place this week. So they played instrumental roles in those 6th grade step-up ceremonies. Since we've been returning in person, they've done home visits, they've visited classrooms, they've been meeting with parents. Part of our summer school programming consisted of our teachers doing executive functioning and SEL lessons for students, and the BAM counselors assisted in those lessons, came into classrooms and essentially co-taught with the teachers on those lessons. They did daily SEL groups at Abbott. There was a vision board SEL activity that the BAM counselor at Abbott did a presentation to the administration there, and they had the end of the year vision board presentation where all the students got to present their vision boards to the staff. The BAM counselor at Jefferson was extremely impactful, did a lot of work with parents throughout the course of the summer. They had something in their summer program called Genius Hour, where kids got to sign up essentially for whatever topic interests them the most for an hour of each day, and BAM was the #1 selected program that kids signed up for the Genius Hour. And outside of the normal summer school program, the BAM counselor at Jefferson also, they had a boys basketball camp at Jefferson, and he assisted and supported with that outside of his normal working hours to do that. So the report kind of summarizes, you can see the numbers there in terms of the participants in a real world, in a regular setting. Each BAM counselor could service up to 55 students. You'll see some of those counselors exceeded that at Juarez and Abbott, for example. Jefferson and Brookside, they didn't quite make their mark. Again, there are factors that contributed to that. The school where we were not able to hire a counselor was at Webster, and the counselor that was hired at Benny was only in that capacity for about 4 weeks. He was not performing to the standard that BAM expects, so he was removed from that school, which is why those numbers are the way they are there. Obviously, when we return in person, and they will do, when we invite them out in 2 weeks, they will give you guys a thorough presentation of their program and how the program is supposed to be executed within buildings when they're in person. But this is the end of the year summary for BAM. And then what they did is they put together a little summary of each school about some of the things that each counselor was doing in the school. Go ahead, Ms. Hannah.
Yes, so, Mr. White, could you put that back to the numbers, please? Right here. So, we are paid, $661,000 for them to service, 86 of our kids?
No.
Yeah, we did.
I don't know what the cost was, but there was 186 students that participated in the BAM program this year. If you look at the participants enrolled column at the bottom of 186.
They were enrolled.
They were
participate?
Say it again?
Did they participate?
Yes, these are participants that were enrolled in the program.
Because it says participants with their consults, with consent. And that's 33, 5, 17, 31.
Yeah, those are the number of students that actually had consents on file. One of the challenges that you see here, one of the challenges they had was getting consents from parents. Okay, so they had 186 students that were enrolled in the program, working with the counselors in the program, and then there was an issue getting some of the consents.
So the students can participate without the consent?
It's a good question. I can find out exactly how that worked. My sense is that part of their enrollment process is they do require a parental consent. So I don't know if they're referring to a actual physical signed consent or if they have verbal consents over phones. I don't know how that played out, but I can find out for you the process for them to get consents for this program.
Dr. No?
Yes.
Sorry, I know you're not BAM. And
Not
I trust that, I trust in you, that you trust in this program.
Thank you.
But, so we're talking about KPIs, you're our KPI guy. When they approached the board, this was even before I came on, they said that they would, 90% of students will at least do high attendance. 90% of students will be promoted to the next grade. If they could deliver on those KPIs, I think that's what we should be seeing instead of just enrollment, because that's what their goal was. If that goal had to be adjusted because of COVID, that's fine.
Sure.
But we need to deliver on those things, because during this time is when the students needed it most. Did they log on? Did they go to the next grade? Those are, if they come in 2 weeks and they present on that, absolutely, we'll renew it. I'll vote in favor, but
Right.
I didn't think that this was what info we wanted as end of year result.
Right, but that was the code.
If I could ask,
Sure.
I'm sorry,
You have the.
Okay, if I could make a comment though, I remember their presentation previously, and it was, their stats were very good, they had a real track record. I remember President Obama was so impressed with this organization that he came to see them when he was president.
No, that's not
Wasn't that,
true.
isn't that?
There's a link on the board.
I forgot that.
The program was recently featured on CNN with Anderson Cooper,
Okay.
where they do an interview with Barack Obama, who advocates for the program.
Barack Obama initiated and made the program. BAM did not. BAM is the Becoming a Man program with the vision, with the man vision, from President Barack Obama. These people did not make BAM. They are an extension of the program that President Barack Obama initiated. So don't get it twisted.
No, I think we're confused.
And he's
Don't get it twisted.
No, I want to be clear. President Obama has the My Brother's Keeper initiative. Right, two different things. BAM as an organization predates My Brother's Keeper initiative. And that's part of where But then we got the idea, is because he saw how I was working the CPS, well, R.D. Duncan was his Secretary of State. He was his Secretary of Education. So, thank you, I just want to clarify, nobody is claiming that Barack Obama founded BAM or did anything with BAM.
And please also say that
He did it with the BAM organization.
They have amazing statistics.
Yeah, well, I want to make sure we're clear about that.
And again, we're expecting them to do something that others have not been able to do during COVID, and I think that's unreasonable.
These people didn't.
So,
What do you?
all we're doing,
I'm talking to these people over here.
Dr. Now, all we're doing is asking, you're requesting the board to renew this contract that we had already signed, and then COVID hit. So really, they have not had an opportunity to really do a good job in our district because of COVID. So we're simply asking the board to approve a renewal, which we had previously approved, and then COVID hit. And they were not able to really get moving because of that pandemic. So I
the program's designed to be done in school setting, right?
Right,
So,
the school setting, in person,
yes.
and that's what we really want to do. So my mind isn't going to change. I'm going to approve them in 2 weeks, so we can listen to their presentation, but I believe that this is something we need.
And if there's any particular format that the board would like their quarterly reports done, I can definitely relay that message to them. Asian Human Services has adapted their reporting to meet some of our requests. So if the board has similar requests for BAM after 2 weeks, if we do move forward with them and they would like specific things in the reports, I'd be more than happy to relay that information to them or the board.
Some kids. I'd like to see some kids that they help change.
If you look at, actually, okay, no, I'm sorry, that was for the next presentation.
All right, so item 15B.
Okay.
For the BAM presentation, could we have the hours and the number of students that actually they reached? If it's all the 186, we need to know that. If it's the 86, we need to know that.
Yeah, I'll find out exactly the number there.
Yeah, in addition to that, I mean, as we're talking about the data on that, I'd like to also see what the attendance rate of those students are. If it's at the high 90% attendance rate of school, so we know being in school is going to help them. And they also talked about academic performance. I think it might be a little too premature, but I think it's good data to know right now about the academic performance. And so they have their thresholds as to what they identify, if they can let us know what that is, like how do they measure their academic performance, and who is meeting, exceeding, or still needs to approach.
And we're putting more money into these agencies than some of our genuine staff that we have here. And I don't understand that.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to do it, because what we're talking about, that's right in your ballpark expertise of what you're doing with our children. Would you give us some kind of insight how BAM has helped you out with truancy in terms of the kids that you see on a day-to-day basis, you and your truant officers?
True 2020.
I have to be very honest, I've had no interaction with BAM, Asian Student Services, or the other programs.
That's right. Anybody had no.
And and to some of these things, and we talked about this a little bit as we were talking about BAM and Asian Human Services for our students. We were talking about these programs not overlapping also, right? So, one student may be receiving this service but not receiving BAM or Asian Human Services. So it depends what service they're also getting, what streamline, where they're at.
Sure.
So I don't know if that would ever overlap with your program for the student outreach program.
She's dealing with truancy, she's dealing with she's dealing with homelessness, she's dealing with all of that stuff. So that's why I asked the question of her. Along with climate control spaces, they see the kids all the time. They're like counselors when they are visitors. So I'm just thinking, if the children that you're dealing with, expulsions, IEPs, and if those things are tailored down and looking better, you would be the first one to see that. So I thought maybe bam, maybe I can have some kind of interaction with you, just like, what's the name I keep saying, Ryan. Ryan had interaction with you, didn't? That's what I'm getting at. So maybe you can do it, trying to control special if you come in and tell. Not even that, maybe a couple of principals can come and say, well, yeah, my classroom has been here too, since Bam has been here. I think you know something. That's dealing with our kids. Bam will say, you know, I'm doing a good job. I'm going to do a good job too, if you can. Right.
We'll be ready with the presentation.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that the principals speak very highly of the program, and I will be more than welcome to invite them in 2 weeks when we present to have them give us.
So when I hear that coming from the people in the classroom dealing with these kids, I'm satisfied.
We'll come back with that.
Great. So we're done with data? Is there something else on the data?
Sorry, go ahead, I just have one question for Dr. Null. Dr. Null, we all know that counselors are important. I mean, we've heard our student board members ask for more counselors. We've heard in the past, the board has heard counselors themselves in our district saying that they are overworked, that they cannot get to know all the children. They have too many on their caseload. I'm just wondering if we have looked, because BAM and WOW are very expensive programs. The board has said that. In fact, they're almost twice as expensive as Asian social services per person.
Yep.
When you look at Asian social services, it's like $68,000, $69,000 per counselor. When you look at BAM, it's over 100. So I'm curious if we've looked at the possibility of just adding more counselors, our own counselors.
Thank you.
To our district. Has that been looked at as an alternative to BAM? Or WOW?
Dr. Sanya?
Yeah.
So that is something that we did discuss, but the issue that we find is that the licensure, right? In order to work in the school, it's a different type of licensure for both social work and for counseling. And so the other piece to this is that we can adjust without having to pay benefits and have someone come on long term. But really is the fact that there is a shortage in addition to the licensure, there's a shortage of social workers and counselors. But I do agree that we need to hear from who's being served, and that the numbers themselves don't depict the quality of services that are being provided. In all fairness about the attendance piece, I don't necessarily know if this is an accurate measurement given the circumstances. And so, I do think that the testimonials, I think we need to hear from the consumers, right? Who's being served? How are they being served? And then that'll be good. I think this is good data. It does give us something, but it doesn't give us what we need. And obviously, it's really important that you're hearing, the board is hearing about, from students, from principals, about how the service is done. And if we need to pivot, then we'll make adjustments.
Yeah, because right now, if I'm not mistaken, I think I saw that we were getting ready to, it says 900 and some thousand for BAM. So, and then there's something in there, and I remember looking at it, it went all the way up to $1.6 million, I think, $1 million.
Because the as well. They put them together.
Yeah, they put all that together. Come on now, we need to show something.
So I agree with you.
Results.
I just want to also bring up another point that Ms. Lozano was discussing earlier about, we don't want to duplicate services. So a group of students is being seen by Asian Human Services. We don't want them to be necessarily seen by BAM and WOW. But BAM and WOW, the other piece to that is that it's more like a tier 3 intervention where it's individual and small group. Not to say that the Asian Human Services isn't, but it's really intensive support for groups of students
that smaller groups of students who have been identified as needing a significant amount of support. The reports are there. I know you all, you spend time researching and you know a lot of this information, but it was an attempt to differentiate and to provide additional services in addition to the fine work that our social workers and counselors are doing here. One other point that I brought up maybe 2 years ago when we started talking about Age and Human Services was the fact that just because we have these folks in here now doesn't mean that we'll always have them there. And what you're describing is exactly what we need to be doing is progress monitoring. And this is not an excuse. It's the data is skewed and the data was hard to capture given the last 16 months. The one thing I do know is something that the superintendent said, I'd rather have them right now than not have them. That's my concern, is that if we don't, I don't want to necessarily just spend money, but if we don't have these resources, because none of us know what this transition is going to be like. I do know the numbers do bear out that a number of our students and our families have been served by AHS, and that has been helpful in terms of providing other resources. So I totally understand what you're saying. I agree with what the board's recommendations are wholeheartedly. We need to have that data, and those organizations should deliver on what they said they would deliver, right? But I also I do want to advocate and say that it's really important that we're gathering these resources now because we're not the only, this is not an original idea. Everyone's looking to gather the resources, and now a lot of districts have more money to do so. So, we just need to keep that in mind as well. Thank you.
And when, I'm sorry, Mr. President, when we do have a presentation, can we also hear from some of our own social workers, our district social workers?
If you want to give us a context for which to have them speak about it,
that's your job.
I don't understand what report related to Age and Human Services or related to serving students. We can talk about it afterwards.
Social workers who service our students.
I think maybe to rephrase Ms. Hannah's question is how, because these programs are supposed to help students, what kind of collaboration happens between what we have in-house and these?
Yeah, we most definitely can talk about the referral service. And that is actually something that we've actually spoken with Board President Ewing about that, about the need to improve that area. That's an area that we addressed with Age and Human Services, that we need to get tighter on that. And then we also talked to the area superintendent about it. So behind the scenes, we are making...
I have to make a statement. They talked to me about it because I'm bringing in market concerns. And so they knew what my areas of concern were with these programs, and I sent the email, and they provided responses. So there's nothing that's secret that's happening about it. Nobody's meeting in private. When I have an issue, I bring it forward and I raise it, and I get responses. And once it's one get, we all get, which is also why we're seeing this presentation. Is because nothing that we're presenting tonight is different than what it is that I saw.
Agreed. Sorry about that. I should have clarified. My apologies, Board President.
No, it's not. I mean, that's what I just want to make sure that you understand. There's nothing different between what it is that I get. There's been an accusation that I received information that's different than the Board of Education. Sometimes I get information first, but I never withhold information from the board.
And this is the exact same information. And what I'm saying here about the need to make sure that the articulation is occurring and the referral process is consistent, not only with the organizations, but across schools. That's something that we're working on with principals. And you can see the data between schools. Some are more effective than others, and then part of that had to do with the referral process. And so that's why we need to really standardize that, reinforce what the expectations are of the resources that the schools have. So.
I just want to see one other thing. What we're talking about here in terms of being able to measure what BAM is doing and feel good about it. We have a BAM over here. Now I can go to this program and I can walk in the door. I see kids doing poetry.
Come on now.
I see kids with different instruments. I see kids writing and playing computers. Now these are some of the kids you might hear about, because of the fact that he didn't catch it, getting shot over Williamsburg, getting shot in Boyd Park. But these were some of the kids that he has, that he's able to, put them in the system here, and then you can see the results.
Right, and I want to thank Brother Williams and Mr. McIntyre too. I think that's Mr. McIntyre. I see the beard, so I'm assuming that's you. Yeah, I want to thank them both because those are additional resources that the community and the schools can tap into. I just want to say the more resources we can have, I'm not saying one is, we are not saying one is better than the other. We're not saying that community resources aren't needed. What it is that we're using them in a different manner. Right? Just like BAM is different than AHS. What's more expensive? I'm not the expert on BAM or WOW. I don't know why they do their billing the way they do know. I do know one thing. When I worked in Chicago for 20 years, and I know that BAM and WOW, they were effective there. I know that they were effective in Boston. I know they were effective in other places. But I also know that it takes a community. It takes folks like these two gentlemen here, and in the work that they're doing in their organizations, and it takes other organizations to work strategically. It's not one size fits all. And so, yes, so thank you, and I thank you for acknowledging.
Yeah, actually both these guys.
I did say both.
Yeah, but they ain't getting $661,000 a million and a half.
Sometimes it ain't always about finance. It's about you as an individual have a heart to want to help children. And I say that to say that even for myself, I've been doing it almost 40 years and nobody gave me a dime. And I'm not going to continue to do it. I'm going to continue to do it because I consider myself as a gatekeeper for the Lord, and I think that's what He wants me to do is help those that are less fortunate than myself.
So BAM on the mind not to be confused with becoming man. So I just want to clarify.
That's right.
How you mentioned that.
Thank you, Brother Blanks, and thank you for those comments. And like you said, Dr. Cesario, it's not one versus the other. It's a collaborative group. I think that's how to bringing out the resources. How do we involve groups that are embedded like this in our schools? But how do we also partner and provide resources to those organizations so that they can continue to work both for ballot, and we can definitely, with these ESSER funds, look at ways to involve the entire community. With that, for the second time, can we get the agenda up, please? No, AHS, we talked about. I think the data is there. We have two policies that have been presented for first reading. Due to the time, please read the policies, and if there are questions or concerns, get those questions or concerns as soon as possible to Kathy and CCP, because we will be planning on bringing these back for a second reading at our next board meeting. We have item 15E, which is the ESSER 3 ARP results, and that is Ms. Pope.
Board President, board members, superintendent, colleagues, and community. The thing that I really want to can you put the PowerPoint please? There's only a few things that I would like to point out before Mr. Lattimore comes up and talk about the results of the actual survey. The board, student board member pointed out that there is a 80%, 20% split. The 20% is required by the state to be used for learning loss. The 80% has more liberty for us to spend the money on COVID-related expenses. And so we've on prior instances recommended to the superintendent and the Board of Education that we expend those 80% on HVAC, windows, abatement, those type things, just as the student board member recommended to us that we do that within the schools so that we can enhance the aesthetics in the school, and then also those things that are allowed by the ESSER 3 grant. Another thing that I wanted to point out, it's not presented on, the PowerPoint is not up yet. One of the other things that I wanted to point out is that we found out
that we're allocated $50.5 million versus the $43.3 million. We were shocked. Yes, we were glad. But with that $50.5 million, they required us to reserve all of the difference. I think I put in here the split. It's about $15 million that we have to reserve for learning loss, inclusive of after-school programs and summer school enhancements or enrichments. And so we're working closely with ASAP to develop a plan, a financial plan. The financial plan has to be posted 90 days after release of the allocation. The allocation was released on July the 1st. The Safe Schools and the continuity plan has to be posted on our website at least 30 days after they released it, which was 1st of July. So we have to have that plan posted on our website by 1 August. The current plan that exists, we're working with legal and ASAP and administration to determine if the plan that's currently posted, if it meets the minimum guidelines, and if it does, then it's okay. So we're working with Kathy and legal, and also ASAP, so we can and operations to determine if we've met that requirement and working through those concerns. Are there any questions? Yes?
Yeah, I
got
got
You still have more reason on your presentation, sure you want.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me,
Well, she still has more on her presentation. You
Yeah.
want her to finish it before she?
I have to ask a question.
Go ahead, Ms.
You just said the required minimum,
Yes.
and that's that 15 million?
Yes.
That's the required minimum, right?
Yes, in addition to that 8 million, which is a 20%, that has to be for learning loss.
So,
They've also required that we have another 7 million that is for summer school, after school programs and learning loss.
so we are looking at, we're looking at 15 million plus the 8.6, is that what you're saying?
No, ma'am, within that 15 million is 8.6.
Oh, from 53 million. Oh, Jesus. 53 million. 50.5 million dollars.
Yes, ma'am.
And the minimum is 15. Our children, and with all due respect, our children are much more than the minimum. We always do the minimum for our children. That's one of the problems. The minimum. Everybody, it's okay with the minimum. No, it's not. Our kids deserve more than just that $15 minimum, because you understand that our infrastructure is probably the oldest infrastructure in terms of educational institutions around, okay? And there's neat things that needs to be done, okay? Got that. However, we're in the business of educating children. And nothing that anybody can do can change that. Nothing.
If I may?
Let me finish and then you can go ahead.
Yes, sir.
That's unbelievable. Anyway, we can't we go
above the minimum? If they gave us 50.5 million, 15 million only to kids for learning loss?
Ms. Pope, can we finish the presentation?
Yes, could I respond to that? I have an answer for that. And
So we can ask the, go ahead, Ms. Pope.
okay. From the ESSER 3 money, we say that we're spending that minimum, but we are spending far more in the budget, because typically our expenditures are about 300 million. In the budget document that we're presenting is about 335 million. So we're spending more money. We added more schools to the site-based expenditures. There's more initiatives. So yes, we could say that we're dedicating more money to capital improvements, but the basic local contributions before we even had this money, we were increasing money towards academics. So we need to provide the full explanation to get a better understanding of where we're spending the money. A lot more money is going towards academics, even from a local, even before we had any ESSER money.
And to be clear, in this scenario, you were just telling us what has to be done.
That is correct.
You weren't even telling us what your recommendation or plan was.
And what we are recommending to the board to do. That is correct.
Okay. And I know you have the results of the survey. Are those in the forthcoming slides, Ms. Pope?
Yes, Mr. Lattimore, please show me.
The next slide, please.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Superintendent Placencia, viewing public, as well as those members who are with us in the community and our colleagues. We conducted a survey on our website. USDOE through ISB has required that we receive feedback from our community stakeholders. They do not tell us how. They give us different suggestions such as focus groups, etc. We've chosen to utilize a survey, which is one of the methods that they find acceptable. This has been on our website initially from the 9th of June to the 25th. We didn't have sufficient numbers in our view, so we re-advertised, we opened it up, and we kept it open to the 9th of July. Next slide, please. We had a series of questions. We call it 10 by 10. People can rate from highest being 10 to 1 being the lowest priority for those specific areas you see listed there. We have a copy of that in front of you. Also, we provided, excuse me, an opportunity for community members, stakeholders, to give us qualitative comments or to write in notes or suggestions. Next slide, please. Here's a perspective of the demographics. You can see we had parents, teachers, other educators, meaning paraprofessionals, example, support staff, administrators, community members, stakeholders. But what I find particularly important to me, and I was really enriched by that, is student input. You can see the numbers there, and obviously being the in count, the number of students, etc. Total 316 responses. Also, we have qualitative comments. Some were no's, we removed those as we compiled. I got that this afternoon. Others are fully indicated, some long comments, some short ones. You can see the percentages related to that on the side. Next slide, please. The results. We simply weighted, example, the first block, let's use HVAC, 60 respondents, 10 points each. And you can do the math all the way out. The top 5 you can see there were HVAC, technology, programs of special education, expanded initiatives, and staff development. And you can see the bottom 5 still listed. this has to be considered. It's not a be-all, end-all, but it must be considered as ASAP and OPS develop their plans, which will drive us to our financial plan at the end. But that's essentially the results. The qualitative pieces I got this afternoon, I'm reading those, and I'll code those for Ms. Polk to categorize them. Takes time, a bit of time to read them, do it. So that's our results today. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
And I apologize, you probably don't have this information at this moment, but I know there was only 13 students.
Yes.
Would you know or say that those 13 students had the same rating of priority that you're looking at holistically?
I did, we took 4 snapshots over time. I have not had a chance, because it just closed, to look at, I break them down, like you said, by parents or teachers or whatever. I haven't had a chance to add those 13 students together yet, but I can do that and get that for you.
Yeah, I was just curious.
No names, oh, I should indicate to the board, we checked by email address, only one duplication, and it was obviously a mistake. The party hit it and 10 seconds later, did it again. So we took the latest response, pulled that out, everybody else is individualized and no staffing or filling the ballot box, if you would. Okay? But I'll get that data for you, ma'am. Give it to the superintendent, chief pass on.
Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am. Hey, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was one other item that's not listed on the agenda, but I'm sorry, we'll go to item 15 and then I have one other item to address, and then I'm going to adjourn. We have the parent-student handbook, which has been presented for a first reading. You all received the email from Susan Malter, and those comments were read this evening at the podium by Brother Blakes. If you have any recommendations, questions, or comments on the student handbook, again, get those to myself as soon as possible so we can get them answered. And if there are any additions or questions, clarifications that need to happen, we will get that to the board. The other item, which is not listed on the agenda but is urgent.
This is just a clarification. If you pull up the parent-student handbook and you go to section 4, you will see that as you move down in, there are a series of the policy that had been provided in the addendum that was stricken. But when we transposed that red line document to a PDF so that we could show the red line in what was posted, the first line for every section in that policy doesn't show as stricken. That's a technical oversight. There's not language that's missing. The recommendation in first reading, because that policy is in flux as well as CDC and IEPH guidelines are in flux. We're still analyzing recent information and getting input for recommendations on that, but right now the recommendation in the handbook is that whole policy section in part 4 would be deleted. So where you see just a single line, that's a technical error in the red line.
Thank you for that clarification. And then lastly, Dr. Cuevas has a request for the board when this come up after the agenda was posted, but because the board is here, approval will allow him to get started on some work that is necessary for our students. Go ahead, Dr. Cuevas.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The operations department, they were conducting asbestos repairs in 5 different schools. There were Oakville, Greenwood, McCall, and Abbott. This week, we got the approval from the operations department to go into those areas so that we can conduct an assessment to evaluate the damage of the network equipment. So the company went there, they did an assessment, we did a walkthrough. So the estimated cost to do the repairs in these 5 schools is $128,000. That's the worst case scenario. We're not going to know exactly the dollar amount until they go and test the cables that needs to be repaired. Those cables that need to be repaired, they need to be pulled, and also they need to be rewired. But the worst case scenario for the repair is $128,000. So I would like to get verbal approval from the board so that we can proceed with this request. Unfortunately, this is not approved with E-rate because E-rate do not cover repairs.
Dr. Cuevas, can you clarify, is the damage to the infrastructure, was that made by the asbestos work?
Yes.
Or by the asbestos itself?
The way that, I would love to have clarification here, but the way that it works, they will spray the ceiling to kill whatever, they need to kill, and then they will cut the ceiling. So when they cut the ceiling, whatever is above the ceiling is going to be damaged. We try to basically to remove whatever wires that we can, but there are wires that unfortunately they're in the way. And it's basically the nature of the construction.
So this is information item that they're looking, we would have to ratify the decision at a future board meeting because it was not on the agenda because it just happened. They're finishing the work and Dr. Cuevas would like to go in, evaluate it and
start the repairs as soon as possible.
So this is above the contingency that we always put into these projects?
Yes, and this was budgeted.
It's not part of the contingency.
This was budgeted in the IPS department. Normally when our operation have these emergencies, we also have a percentage in the IPS budget to cover this. So this was budgeted.
Budgeted, but not part of the contingency in the operations.
This contingency in the IPS department, in our budget.
You just need
to have that, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Right now, the school do not have network in those areas, so there are 2 of the schools that have no network.
And you're asking for verbal approval so you access the funds and pay it out?
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, not verbal approval ahead.
Verbal approval.
Hey, because we will have to go ahead and ratify the decision, so the board will actually have to officially vote at our next board meeting. But we don't want to wait 2 weeks for something that we can start on and get done and have ready for the students.
You're not asking for a trip to go to Miami, you're asking for something to be done in school.
I would love to, but
But I'm saying all that to say is a no-brainer, you have to write.
Ms. Polk?
Yes, there is about a 10% contingency on those projects. And he also has a contingency in his budget for work like this. So either place we could pay for it.
Okay, because, that way it's already approved through the ones that we already approved, if it's within that limit. And I don't know if you guys figured that out yet, but as you're looking for the funds.
We did think about that, but normally we try to reserve that 10% for actual work if they run upon something that's unknown. In this case, he has it for IT-related expenses, and so we thought it was appropriate to charge it there.
Okay.
All right, and then I do apologize, there are no legal reports. I'm going to ask with the board's concurrence that we forego board member time. It's a special meeting. It is already 9:26, and I feel like we've talked enough. So with that, I would like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. McBride, second by Mr. Riddle. All in favor, signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
How are you?
Good.